Welcome to McGregor. In today's presentation, we shall be looking at the theories of leadership and management. To define a theory, we say it is a properly argued or reasoned out ideas about facts or events. Some people can define it as a set of principles on which a subject of study or an investigation is based on, and management theories refer to the work of leading thinkers on management, their ideas and conclusions about how management should be done and undertaken. The main aim of us studying the theories of management is to help us establish how managers can achieve effectiveness and efficiency in their work. Management theories can be classified into four main categories, that is the classical management theories, also known as scientific theory of management, the second one being human relation theory or behavioral management approach, then the systems theory and contingency theories. The classical management theory. This classical management theory is also known as a scientific management theory and is associated with the works of the people like Frederick Taylor, Henry Gunt, Henry Fayol, and Max Weber. Let's get a brief history of these great men in this classical theory. Frederick Taylor was a mechanical engineer known as the father of scientific management. He was born in Pennsylvania, educated in a tin company and a paper mill that invented several industrial tools. Frederick Taylor conducted research on methods of training workers for increased production, and his scientific management thought dwelt on economic incentive as motivators. He believed that by making more money, he'll pay more money to the workers and they will be more motivated to work. His time and motion studies emphasized on training, job analysis, and proper selection of workers. The second man we have is Henry Gunt, who was a colleague of Taylor and was concerned with the problems of efficiency. Gunt developed a task and bonus remuneration plan whereby workers received a guaranteed day's wage plus a bonus for production above the standard to stimulate their higher performance. Gunt developed what is known as the Gantt chart, or a forerunner of the program evaluation and review technique, which depicts the relationship of work planned or completed on one's axis to the amount of time needed to use. Henry Gunt developed what's known as the Gantt chart, which is a forerunner of the program evaluation and review chart. In this Gantt chart, he depicts the relationship of the work planned or completed on the axis to the amount of the time needed or used on the other. And the third theorist is Henry Fayol, and this French mining engineer whose book on general industrial management was the first established in 1916 and perceived to be the most influential of all the classical writers. Henry Fayol believed that good management was a skill that could be taught, and that good management principles were needed to guide the managers. Therefore, he developed what's known as the 14 principles of management. Let's then have a look at these principles developed by Henry Fayol. Principles of management, and the first principle was the division of labor or division of work, where specialization increases efficiency, subdividing tasks, productivity goes up as the person gets to increase his or her ability and the work proceeds smoothly and quickly. The second principle is authority. Authority is defined as the official. The second principle is authority. Authority is the official power to act, and it is the power to direct the work of others. Each worker should be given authority commensurate with the amount of his responsibility in an organization. Then principle number 3 is discipline, whereby each worker and management should maintain proper discipline voluntarily according to their placement. The primary purpose in discipline is to assist employees to behave in a manner that allows them to be self-directed in meeting the organizational goals. This discipline also helps workers develop obedience, diligence, and respect. An employee may be disciplined for not meeting the laid down standards of performance, violating the rules and policies, or insubordination, which is the lack of respect to the authority. Then principle number 4 is the unit of command, and this is basically a one-man boss. An employee should receive orders from one supervisor only, and unity of command is represented by the vertical solid line between the positions on an organizational chart. A dual command is usually a source of conflicts if an employee gets orders from multiple superiors or multiple supervisors. Then principle number 5 is the unity of direction. One person should direct all the activities that support a single objective, and all operations with the same objectives should have one manager and one plan. Then principle number 6 being subordination of personal interests to general interests. This means an individual or a group interest should not supersede those of the organization. And remuneration is the 7th principle of management, whereby proper remuneration, which includes salaries, allowances, and other incentives, to be given to all employees according to their level of performance and responsibility by the management or the employee. This remuneration is important in maintaining the loyalty and support of the workers, whereby they must receive a fair wage for the services they have rendered to the organization. Then principle number 8 is decentralization and centralization. Decentralization is the degree to which decision making is diffused throughout the organization. There are several factors for one to consider when determining the optimal degree of decentralization for an organization. The top management needs to have a positive attitude towards decentralization, and they need competent personnel whom they can delegate the authority to. Even with decentralization, some powers and functions are reserved with the top level authorities, top managers remaining responsible for long-range objectives and goals, broad policies, selection of key executives, and approval of major capital expenditure. Managers also must maintain the responsibility, but should delegate certain authorities to the subordinates under them. Then principle number 1 is known as the chain of command or the Scala chain. This means or embraces reporting relationships where the chain of command is the formal line of authority and communication. A clear and broken line of authority should extend from the highest to the lowest level of an enterprise. This chain of command helps us to ensure an orderly flow of information and supplements the principle of true command. And then principle number 10 is order, where there should be proper policies, rules, procedures, regulations so as to maintain an orderly situation in an organization. And then we have equity as the principle number 11, where all employees should be treated with equity and justice. For example, the rewards, training opportunities, or promotions should be equitable to all the employees in the organization. Then stability and tenure of personnel is the 12th principle, where there should be a prescribed tenure for all employees. Management should work towards obtaining long-term commitment from the staff, and employees should have a sense of security and hope in their jobs. A high turnover increases inefficiency, and therefore it should be reduced. And the 13th principle is the initiative. Employees and management should take proper initiation so as to achieve the objectives of the organization. The workers should be allowed to conceive and execute plans in order to develop the capacity to the fullest and feel like an active part of the organization. And the last principle of management is the teamwork. In teamwork, it means that without members of the organization working together as one, they are unlikely to succeed. The group spirit and group morale can be cultivated among the employees and employer the group spirit and group morale can be cultivated among the employees and employer so as to accomplish the objectives. Harmony and unity among members is a great strength in the organization, and a high morale improves teamwork, leading to greater productivity. And the next great theorist is Max Weber. Max Weber was a German sociologist and political scientist who advocated for bureaucracy as an ideal form of organization for a complex institution. He described bureaucracy as having a well-defined hierarchy of authority, division of work based on specialization of the employees, highly specific rules governing workers' duties and rights, work procedures, interpersonal relationships, and promotion that is based on technical competence. Weber concentrated much on the structural aspect of the organizations and consequence took rather mechanistic and impersonal standpoint. His work failed to recognize that the complexity of a human behavior and constantly changing environment of the today's organization. In spite of these and other deficiencies, as organizations grow in size and complexity, the need for some form of systematic organization, which experience shows inevitably incorporates a number of Weber's bureaucratic elements. Then we have another theory known as human relations or human behavior theory or neoclassical theory. The human relations theory states that a scientific or classical school did not consider the talents and the morals of the workers, and it further says that if the manager does not recognize the talents and the morals of the workers, they cannot achieve effectiveness and efficiency. Besides meeting the economic goals of the organization, the managers must try to improve the physiological, social, psychological needs of the workers, which in turn improves productivity. Maslow and McGregor focused on the social aspect of work and organizational design. Abraham Maslow's theory states that each human being needs to achieve some basic needs. People are motivated by the desire to satisfy their needs, and one need is satisfied, and once one need is satisfied, another need appears and takes its place, and then the individual is motivated to satisfy the new need. Individuals at work experience a variety of needs, and managers should identify the ways to which they need to meet the group or individual needs so as to motivate them to work. It is the responsibility of the manager to enable employees to fulfill their needs. And Maslow, who was a psychologist, develops a hierarchy of human needs, starting with the physiological needs at the bottom of the pyramid, safety needs, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization in that order. And then we have Douglas McGregor, who developed the theory X and theory Y. These are a set of management assumptions about behaviors of subordinates, and he noted that most managers make the assumptions about their employees. In theory X, he said that an average human being has a dislike for work and will avoid it if possible. Most people must be coerced, controlled, directed, and even threatened with punishment in order to produce. And the average person has to be closely directed, wishes to avoid responsibility, and only wants security. The manager, therefore, holding theory X, assumes intends to be tough, authoritarian, and supports tight controls with punishment. He also tends to supervise the workers very closely. On the other hand, in theory Y, you assume that employees like work, which is as natural as rest or play. Human beings do not have to be controlled or coerced as long as commitment to the organization is present, and under proper conditions, they will not only accept but also seek responsibility. The manager using theory Y believes in self-control, is democratic in nature, and consults his staff. He or she encourages participation in decision-making by the subordinates. The third theory of leadership is systems theory. A system is defined as a collection of components or parts that work together to achieve a common objective. And systems theory views an organization as a system with different parts. Even if you enforce tools and practice principles of management properly, you cannot achieve the effectiveness. Even if you enforce tools and practice principles of management properly, you cannot achieve the effectiveness and efficiency if you do not either coordinate the activities of the workers within the organization or consider the external forces which affect the organization. A system in this case can either be open or closed, and an open system suggests that the organization is not only affected by internal changes but also external environmental forces. On the other hand, a closed organizational system views the system as being totally independent of outside influences, which is an unrealistic view for healthcare organizations. For you to be successful, today's healthcare organization must be able to adapt to both internal and external changes. Therefore, a manager in healthcare will be wise to consider open systems theory and the impact a change in one area will have in another area, both internal and external to the organization. And lastly, we have the contingency approach. This contingency approach theory advocates that it is impossible to specify a single way of managing the works best in all situations. It is a situational appropriateness management where different situations require different managerial responses. Managers need contingency plans. These are plans that are flexible and can adapt quickly to change in today's unstable surroundings. The contingency approach has grown in popularity because it recognizes that there is no magical formula for managerial effectiveness. Principles of management. Principle number 1 is management by objectives, of MBO. Management by objective is a process where the superior managers and subordinates of an organization jointly identify its common goal. They define each individual's major areas of responsibility in terms of results expected of him or her, and uses these measures as a guide for operating the units and assessing the contribution of each of its members. The second principle of management is management by learning from experience. This principle is usually applied when management realizes that there is a gap between objectives and the results. Therefore, management team analyzes why the observed results are achieved and why they fell short of their set objectives. Management learns from this process and uses it and what has been learned for further decisions for achieving its objectives. This process is known as the feedback of information from experience to decision for action. Then the third principle of management is management by division of labor. When work is divided or distributed among workers, the work is directed and coordinated, then the group becomes a team. In a team, and generally where there is specialization and division of labor, each category of staff exercising its own skills towards achieving objectives, the management assigns a balanced proportion of each kind of staff to the work to be done. And the fourth principle of management we have is the management by substitution of resources. For example, labor substitution using a trained auxiliary personnel or volunteers for tasks that were formerly undertaken by professionals. You can use generic drugs instead of originals in pharmaceutical industry, or even substituting bikes for motor vehicle transport when petrol sales go up. Then the last principle of management is management by delegation. Delegation is a transfer of responsibility and authority to another person to act on one's behalf. In this case, you have to entrust a task to another person who serves as one's representative. Sometimes managers must delegate routine tasks so that they are free to handle problems which are more complex or require higher level of expertise. Managers should also delegate work if someone else is better prepared or has a higher or greater expertise or knowledge about how to solve that given problem. Leadership is the process of influencing people to willingly accomplish goals. It is the ability to influence the behavior of others towards achievement of a mutually established goal, in short. And leadership is the use of one's skills to influence others so as to perform to the best of their ability towards achieving institutional goals without the use of a threat or violence. And in leadership, we have various theories of leadership, and various writers have attempted to explain the theoretical basis for leaders and leadership. Number one theory of leadership is a trait theory or a great man theory. The trait theory identifies personal characteristics which a leader should have. This theory states that leaders possess a set of physical and emotional characteristics that are important for inspiring others towards a common goal. Some theorists who subscribe to this theory believe that leaders are born with certain qualities which determine leadership ability and success. These leaders are seen as gifted or develop certain characteristics, including a body physique which is strong and muscular people, mental abilities, meaning these people are knowledgeable and having good judgment and wisdom. They have a fluent verbal communication ability, and their personality has embraced confidence, aggressive, outgoing, risk-taking people, and authoritarian. Then another theory of leadership is the situational theory of leadership. This situational theory is based on the belief that a given situation produces or creates a leader. For example, political leaders. Times of distress also create leadership. Problems unite people and anybody who comes out with some solution. And lastly, we have contingency theory of leadership, which combines both trait and situational theories and maintains that people become leaders because of their qualities with personalities and various situational factors, and one can take advantage and become a leader.